Hey everyone, thanks for joining me again. This is part 5 in the Build a Website with Gatsby video tutorial series. And in the last video I know I said that we would focus this time on building a post page template. I actually wanted to add images to our post blocks first. So if you recall last time, this is what we had, and for each post block here I would like to add a thumbnail image right here on the left side underneath the horizontal line that would push this text over and have it wrap around. So to make that look the best with the wraparound effect, we'll end up using a larger excerpt than just the 100 characters we're using now. But first let's focus on using Gatsby Image, because that's what we're going to use with our images in this project. And the reason why we'd use Gatsby Image is because it optimizes performance, and it really does improve the user experience. It talks about a few problems with loading images on web pages. For example, if you're doing everything yourself, you'd have to generate multiple smaller images, so smartphones and tablets wouldn't have to download heavy desktop size images. Like if you only had one image at all, you'd have to use that for all of your different screen sizes, and then when it's unnecessary, there's no reason to try to load that in. It just slows things down. Also, if your image loads very slowly, a lot of times the content that's supposed to surround the image will just flow in and occupy that space where the image is supposed to be, and then when the image finally does load, it makes all the content jump back into place. Right, but what Gatsby Image does for us is it creates a placeholder and it puts that where the image should be, and it keeps all the surrounding content where it should be. And then when the image loads, or while it loads, you get this sort of blur up effect where at first it's blurry and then it comes in really sharp. So like I said, it increases performance and it increases the user experience. It just looks better. So using it is usually not too difficult. Sometimes you end up running into problems, especially when you want to bring in the image through your front matter, which means through your metadata. Recall in our blog posts, right, we have a title field, a date field, a published field, and an author field, but we'd also like to add an image field, and that would have a path to the images that we would have in our project. Or sorry, you would have a path to a specific image associated with that blog post. And then we would like to bring that in that way dynamically, bring in these images through the metadata rather than hard coding them in for every single blog post we have. All right, especially if we start using a content management system, because then we would like to upload it directly that way and then have it just connect up in the front matter to each of the different posts. And that's saying a lot, but without seeing what I'm talking about, it might be difficult to understand. So first, what you'll need to do is you'll need to bring in 3 different packages. Right, one will be the Gatsby Image package. Also, you'll need Gatsby Plugin Sharp as well as Gatsby Transformer Sharp. All right, so go ahead and install those now. Once you've got them installed in your Gatsby config file, add them up towards the top of your plugins array. Right, there are times when if you don't do that and you try to pull images in through front matter, you end up with an error. And usually the fix that even Gatsby recommends at first is to try putting those plugins up at the top of the plugins array. Also, we'll need to source our images. We'll need to tell Gatsby where to find them, so we use the Gatsby source file system another time, so you can just create that right underneath your posts data source object here, and then you just use the name images, for example, and then put the path to the images. In this case, we're using an images folder that's in the SRC folder, and I've already added that to the project. You see this images folder inside of my SRC folder, and I've added 3 images. You can go to Unsplash or wherever and grab 3 images and throw them into your project. And then what we'll do, just to see a basic use case of Gatsby Images, we'll go into our index.js file, and I've already added the basic part of the query that we need to bring in that image, right? So if you're wondering where I got this from, you can go to the Gatsby documentation for the Gatsby Image package, right? How to use, and you can see here, this is for fixed images. We're using fluid images, so maybe you can scroll down and you'll find this bit of code right here that's useful, and then just change the necessary fields and values. So this is how I have mine set up. I've got the path, not the path, the name of the file here. It already knows where to find this file because we set that up in the Gatsby config file. So now we just need to use this image component that comes from the Gatsby Image package to display our image. And we can put that right under the title here. All right, and it takes a property fluid. All right. Before we do this, let's take a look in the console at the data. Excuse me. So before, right, because all we were bringing in was the all markdown remark query. We were only seeing that in the data object, but now we should also see this test image object as well. And so in the console, if you look here, it's at line 9. All right, so we do see the test image object as well as all markdown remark. So we have access to it now. All right, so uncomment this. So we get it with data dot, and it was called test image. Last time we used data dot all markdown remark. This time it's data dot test image dot child image sharp. Right? If you go down here, you can see that's right here, and the next thing will be fluid, and then after that, you don't need to add this. Alright, so if you come over, you can see that the image is there, and if you refresh your page, you can see that it has that blur up effect happening as it loads. Right. And if we want to, we're not going to keep this image, this is just a test, but if we wanted to resize it or make it responsive, right, one thing we could do is we could give it a width of 100% and then wrap it in a div and then use that div to control the width. But for now, we'll just use a style property. And this component does take a style property. And we'll set the width to, say, 300 pixels. Alright, so we can control it that way. Right, and if we refresh the page, we don't see any of the content jumping around while that image loads. Alright, so going back to your code, we can get rid of this now. We don't need it. Alright, and we don't need to worry about getting rid of it from the query at this point. Now, if you go to Google and you say Gatsby image with front matter, tells you how to do it using front matter. Alright, so you just add an image to your query, right? So for example, if you go over here, we would add image, right? But we would also need the subfields that go along with it, right? Because it's the same as up here. You know, you'll need the child image sharp and fluid. Right, so we can just copy that from here. I don't want to call it featured image, I'll just call it image. Okay, so right now we don't have any paths to any images in our front matter, so let's go ahead and add that to one of our posts. So how about here in the first post, we'll add an image field. And remember, it's in the src folder, in the images folder. Okay, so hopefully that's pulling in the image from the front matter. All right, so if we go to our home page, and let's take a look at these posts. One of them should have that image in the front matter. This one doesn't. Let's go to the next one. This one doesn't either. So let's go to the last one. And this one does. Alright, so we have that image available to us through the front matter now. Alright, so to use it, and this time we're not using it in index.js, right? Our image is inside the front matter of this post here, so it's being passed into our post block component, so we don't need the image component in this file anymore. We'll bring it into this file. Alright, and we'll want to, or at least I want to put it underneath this bar here, but I also want to wrap it in a div so I can control the size using that div. So alright, and then as you noticed before, some of the images, the image fields in our front matter for two of the posts were null, so we don't want to get an error. So we'll use a conditional here. And we'll say post.node.frontmatter.image, meaning if there is an image, then we'll add that image component. Alright, so this takes fluid. Again, that'll be post.node.frontmatter.image.child image sharp.fluid. Okay, so if you go over to your, well, it's actually our first post, but it's the third post down, you see that the image is being displayed. All right, of course we want it smaller. So we'll set the width to 100% here, and then we'll use a div to control it. This div right here. Alright, so you go into your postblock.scss. And let's give it a width of 150 pixels. Alright, so that shrunk it down. Alright, then we'll want the text to wrap around it, and that's easy enough to do. Just use float left. And that puts the text over there. Alright, we don't, as you can see, the text is right up against the edge of the image, so we need a little bit of a border there, a little bit of a buffer, excuse me. So we can say for the image, margin right, let's do 20 pix. Alright, so for now, we'll leave it like that. Now one thing you see is that And actually, it's okay now, right? We've got our third post up here, we've got our second post here, and our first post here. So they're in descending order from the most recent. But if you want to guarantee that, so that you don't have to worry about your posts getting out of order and that people always see the most recent post at the top, first what we can do is take a look at, let's go to your graphical interface. Let's go to all markdown remark, all right, and let's do a sort the fields. All right, so the field will be front matter, because we're going to sort by date. So that'll be front matter date. And the order will be not ascending but descending. All right, so all we need is this. All right, so go back to your index query and put that right here. All right, that guarantees they're in descending order. All right, we can get rid of this. We're not using it anymore. So if we go back to our home page, nothing has changed. They were already in descending order last time we checked. But if we want to make sure that this feature works, what we can do is change this to ASC. Alright, so if you go back to your page, you can see that they are in ascending order. So we know that feature works, and while you're not looking, I'll reset to descending order. Sorry about that. Alright. Good. Now, one thing you might notice is oftentimes when we refresh, we see that error cannot read all markdown remark of undefined, right? So what we can do with that, and you can see here that I returned it to being in descending order. All right, for example, here we're asking for the edges, right? But it's saying cannot read all markdown remark of undefined. That means the data is not defined, right? So what we should probably do is use a conditional here. So we can say if there is some data, that's what we want. Else we'll just put an empty string there. All right, for now. So going back to what we have, all right, let's add the other posts first. Oh, sorry, the other images, excuse me. So in the second post, we'll add the image. And that was called Eye of Storm. All right, you can see that one just popped in. And then for the third post, what was that one called? Path to Dogmatism. Weird names for images. All right, so you can see that we're getting all of our we're getting all of our images in the posts, but these posts are a little bit too close together. We didn't have that problem before because we set a top and bottom margin, but it looks like we might need to set them a little bit larger. So first though, before we do that, let's increase the excerpt size. Now, I find that 700 characters works quite well, so let's set it there. Alright, so now the posts are spaced apart a little bit better. Alright, maybe we're a little bit too far from the top of the page. Maybe we can go in here. Instead of having it be 100 pixels, maybe it could be 50 pixels. We'll go back. Still a little bit far. Maybe just about 10 pixels. Alright, that's okay. Alright, so we were able to add the images into our post blocks. We've got thumbnails working now, and if you refresh the page, you'll see they do that kind of blurry thing as they load in. Good. Also, one more thing, if you look at the console, we've got this annoying error that keeps popping up, and this is one you've probably seen 1,000 times, right? We used map without using key in React, and React loves to give you this warning, so let's just fix that while we're here. Alright, so I've already got this index here, so we can just add a key prop here and just add I, and hopefully that shuts React up, and it does. Good. Alright, so we're not seeing that anymore. Okay, so for now we've got a better looking post list. We've got images now. We've got longer excerpts, so that would be a little bit more tantalizing for viewers, so that if they do want to read the post, they've got a little bit more reason to want to. A little bit more of a motivation. But anyway, thanks again for joining me, and in the next video we will definitely look at adding page templates so that we can see the entire blog post and have our images be displayed in a much larger fashion. So, as always, again, thank you, and I will see you next time. Cheers.